Welcome to Cinema Detective and my explanation of the Netflix movie Leave the World Behind. Now, fair warning, everything in this video will be spoilers, so if you've not seen the film yet, get out of here, off you go. Okay, so you came here looking for answers.
I wonder what that means.
Like, why did they take until the last seconds of this movie to reveal what was going on? And even then, they didn't really tell us all that much. And what was the deal with Friends? And why on earth did Rosie sit down to watch TV when she just found a fallout shelter? Well, I can explain all. Let's begin. So, about the plot pacing. The film was based on the book by Rumaan Alam, and when he wrote the story, Alam didn't want to tell the readers anything at all about the nature of the catastrophe, and he only did it when he was pressured into it by his editor. For the movie, we don't have a narrator other than the camera, and so Sam Esmail gives us a little bit more information about what's happening through the stupid big oil tanker crashing into the beach like nobody could see the land on a perfectly clear day, the plane crashing without even attempting an emergency landing, and the self driving cars inexplicably overriding all the safety features and driving full speed into a big pileup. All these dramatic moments don't exist in the book and were shoehorned into the film, presumably to create some visuals that would look good in the trailer. So it turns out that the global catastrophe was never supposed to be the story. Leave the World Behind simply isn't a plot driven thriller, but instead a psychological thriller that heavily leaned into broader themes like morality, society, and human nature. So, what were they trying to say?
Help me out here, babe.
At the start of the movie, we see that Amanda has seemingly spontaneously booked a vacation, and Clay, played by Ethan Hawke, asks her, why today? Amanda, that's Julia Roberts, explains that when she couldn't sleep, she went to the window to watch the sunrise and saw all the people starting their day with such tenacity and such verve, all in an effort to make something of themselves, make something of the world. And she felt so lucky to be part of that, but then she remembered what the world is actually like.
I fucking hate people.
This wasn't a planned vacation, it was a last minute thing. She just had a feeling that they needed to get out of the city. Amanda's acting on a mother's instinct. She feels something is wrong not only with their lives, but something deeply wrong with society, something deeply wrong with the world. So, like the repeating motif of all the migrating animals, Amanda subconsciously steers her family away from the city and the approaching danger. Amanda, Clay, and the kids are already fleeing the catastrophe before they are even aware of it, before we're aware of it. And similarly, GH looked at the market and he just knew something was coming. And someone didn't laugh at one of his jokes and he thought, must be some sort of global meltdown on the way. Anyway, right from the start, we've got these parallels between humans and animals. The animals are acting on instinct, and the humans are acting on instinct. And as the movie progresses, we get this animalistic depiction of the family, the farting, the bickering between Archie and Rosie, the eating and drinking, the sex, the suggestion of peeing in the pool. It's this sort of messy view of everyday family life, because they want this family to feel very real so that you can connect with them viscerally. We're not dealing with superheroes here, not even heroes, they're real people. And that's why we see Archie perving over Ruth. And it's also the reason why we get the race and class thing slapped in her face repeatedly throughout the film, and for the distrust that's everywhere.
I don't feel comfortable staying in a house with people I don't know.
We're getting a taste of the best and the worst of the human experience. These people are a microcosm of humanity, and they're there representing all of us. So their flaws are there to represent all our flaws as a culture, as a species. Roman Alam wanted the story to feel like mourning the passing of the finest life has to offer. He also wanted to ask the question, are we worth it? Do we deserve this life, this planet? That's what the story's about. So the explanation of the cause of the existential threat comes very, very late in the movie.
A coup d'etat. Civil war.
And it's not very fleshed out because it's basically not important to the story, not from the author's point of view. The details of the apocalypse have always been something of an afterthought. Instead, the storytellers wanted you to experience the pressure of not knowing what's going on too, the same way that the characters don't know, to try to force you into their shoes, because they want us all to take a good hard look at ourselves, how we're living, how we're treating other people, and so on. It's a sort of bait and switch tactic in the advertising, and I think it will backfire on them. A lot of people are going to watch this movie expecting one thing and will be disappointed when that isn't delivered. Let's tidy up a few things. First, GH and Ruth are who they say they are. They always were. There's literally nothing going on there. And there's no man sleeping in the cabin watching them. Archie was just teasing his sister. Archie was just being a brat to show that humans can be brats sometimes. But somebody is watching them. The animals are watching them, and we're watching them. The camera is always hovering at odd angles. We're looking at them and we're judging them because, it's Judgment Day, the apocalypse, the end of the world, the day of reckoning for humanity. So a lot of the scenes are there to make us question their morality and value as humans. Clay, for example, being so helpless. He says,
I will take care of this for us.
but then he quickly and pathetically gets lost. And he turns his back on the Spanish-speaking woman who was asking for his help. Here's what she said. I'm trying to get back to my house. I got lost and I've been walking for a while. I need to use the telephone. You're the first person I saw all day. We have to get out of here. I just saw a plane that was spraying a red gas in the surrounding area. And Clay let her down. He failed that particular test of humanity. She was in need of help and he turned his back on her.
I am a useless man.
And we've got Amanda's racism and Ruth's distrusting nature and dog-eat-dog attitude. But let's take a deeper look at Rosie. When Rosie encounters the deer, she is scared, but she doesn't run away. She faces them down with this incredibly determined grimace on her face. The deer are representing the threat not only to these people, but the threat of a global catastrophe to humanity. And Rosie's reaction to this threat is telling about her resilience, her youthful naivety. The future, if there is one, belongs to the young. If anyone's going to survive this, it's going to be the young, who, not knowing any other way, will face up to whatever life throws at them. And we have this lovely moment where Rosie asks her mother,
what's it called when they used to play old things over and over again?
Reruns.
So we get this glimpse of how Rosie, who is only 13, has already grown up, adapted to a different world. Without young people, we simply don't have a future. That's always been true. But the self-absorbed adults don't always listen to kids, and they don't always think about future generations. As Rosie says,
like they would even care. No one cares what I say.
A few years back, Rosie could have been played by Greta Thunberg to really hammer the point home. And Rosie was the only one that saw the threat coming. Think about that for a second. She saw the threat coming, she tried to warn them, but nobody listened to her. But even though the apocalypse plot wasn't deemed all that important, you've probably still got some questions. So let's talk about some of the strange occurrences to see if we can explain the chicken feed that we were served up. Well, firstly, we saw the CNN broadcast. It's important to remember that we saw the broadcast, but they didn't. The map showed substantial levels of disruption in populated areas and low levels of disruption in less populated areas. And that holds true. If we had a complete loss of the communications, it would take time for news to spread. In cinema, we're used to watching the end of the world play out and seeing presidents reacting. We get access to high security meetings, generals making decisions, the world rallying round to fight the aliens or whatever. But if we were to experience a catastrophic event, the reality would be very different. A lot of us would be in the dark. So this is probably a layer of realism that is absent from most apocalyptic movies. We also see a satellite change position, drift off course, and presumably stop working. As GH said,
The satellites are networked to computers down here.
We also see the phone notifications that hackers were behind the power outage. And we also have the radio broadcast that gets through to Clay's car on medium wave radio. Again, we heard it, but Clay was outside of the car trying to get a signal on his phone at the time. In the year 1619, the first recorded enslaved Africans landed at Point Comfort aboard the English privateer ship called the White Lion.
Now getting reports that the fallout from the ongoing cyber attack has led to a catastrophic environmental disaster in the south, impacting animal migration patterns.
So I think Sam Esmail is trying to say that the fallout of man's depravity, how we treat each other, all the infighting, has led to this precipice. But let's ignore all that and continue doing what the filmmakers accuse us all of doing and focus on the silly details of the plot of an entertainment show. Okay, so we can begin to build up a bit of a picture. We've got a large-scale cyber attack caused by hackers, causing power outages and environmental disasters that impact animal migration. But we also learn from the computer terminal in the fallout shelter that we're talking nuclear war because of the high levels of radiation detected. Well, high-altitude nuclear explosions could affect computers all over the world, knocking out communications on a mass scale. And if you think this is all pie in the sky, Margarita Simonyan, the editor-in-chief of Russia Today, the Russian state-controlled broadcaster, recently threatened the world with this very thing.
Что если произвести в сотнях километрах На нашей же территории, где-нибудь над Сибирью, термоядерный взрыв, например, ядерный взрыв, так это будет выведена из строя вся радиоэлектроника, вся цифра, все спутники.
Lovely woman. We don't know what happened in the movie. The point is, it's more scary if we don't know exactly what's going on. And let's talk about those noises. Sonic booms could cause glass to crack or shatter, so Archie's theory holds out. There are many supersonic military planes that fly today. Types of missions that would require breaking the sound barrier would be rapid response interceptions to intercept hostile aircraft or defending against missile attacks. So we're looking at military aircraft or perhaps missiles. And what about the leaflets that were dropped from a drone? Death to America. Conveniently, Archie knows how to read a little Arabic. The rest of it reads something like this. Pay immediate attention to what we say. We possess the most dangerous and destructive explosives in history, and we leave this horrific fact for you to consider. Steps must be taken to stop the resistance for Muslim inquiry they built into your religion. I'm sure that's a terrible translation, but you get the gist of it. As GH says, nothing about it makes sense. If an Arabic country or the Koreans wanted to warn, threaten, or otherwise communicate with the American population of Long Island, they would probably do it using English. Or was it supposed to not make sense? Was the goal to breed confusion and terror? Well, talking of things not making sense, was Archie's teeth falling out something to do with that noise? Or was it the tick bite that caused Archie to be sick? We don't really know of anything in current medical science that could cause such symptoms. If it was radiation sickness, there would be other additional symptoms. So we need to be looking at some novel weapon or virus, something new and unexplained. Or maybe they just didn't really think it through correctly. Was it supposed to not make sense? Was the goal simply to breed confusion and terror and make the film more scary? This is one of the issues that I have with the movie. Okay, so the author and director didn't want to focus on the nature of the disaster and instead wanted us to focus on these human beings clinging on to normal life and refusing to wake up to what was going on around them. But they realised that they needed to give us something because it's incredibly annoying if you don't tell us anything. I think because the disaster isn't the focus of the story, it never gets the attention that it should. It's all the more tempting to make things more scary and make them a little more weird. So the little hints and suggestions about what the disaster is, they go too far. To me, they suggest things that are almost alien or supernatural, so much so that when the final reveal comes, you're like, is that it? Just a regular, vanilla, man-made nuclear war and cyber attacks? I was expecting aliens or artificial intelligence taking over the world. The self-driving cars, for example. You see, I can believe that a hacker could cause the self-driving cars to stop working. I find it less believable that they could cause them all to start smashing into each other. It would need a malevolent AI with some kind of super intelligence to orchestrate all this. But if we're led to believe that all this is caused by humans, then something doesn't quite sit right. And it's the same with the oil tanker. So the GPS isn't working, but the ship still has crew and they can still see the land, right? So what's causing them to steer the boat directly into the beach? Society isn't yet at that level of automation or reliance on technology. We've got safeguards and real people at the helm. If an oil tanker's crew found themselves without GPS, maps, or any functioning navigation tools, or these tools were somehow faulty, they would still typically be able to see land and identify land. And in clear weather conditions, visual sighting of the coastline is a fundamental navigational method. Tanker crews are trained in basic seamanship, which includes keeping a lookout and identifying landmarks. And in the event of a cyber attack that disrupted a plane's navigation or communication system, a pilot would still retain control over the aircraft. Even if the autopilot system had been hacked prior to takeoff, the pilot should still have manual control over the plane. So you'd expect him to at least attempt an emergency landing, not just nosedive straight into the beach. It's all stretching reality a little bit too far. And that would be fine if there was a reality stretching payoff, like an alien invasion or some supernatural cause, but there wasn't. And I get it. As a society, we are careering towards disaster, and we know it's coming. We know there's a climate emergency. We can see all these things coming, and maybe we have some safeguards in place, but We're just ignoring the danger and heading straight towards it. But you can only stretch a metaphor so far. I think they're a little guilty of attempting to gild the lily. They've taken a brilliant concept, but they've spoiled it a little in attempting to improve it. If the weird goings on had just been a little bit less weird, it might have been more believable, and we wouldn't have been set up to receive a fantastical explanation that never arrived. The most reliable source of information is the terminal in the Fallout bunker. That's the best you're going to get. The phrase rogue armed forces on the computer terminal is backing up GH's version of events, that a cyber attack was designed to destroy the country by provoking a civil war, or infighting. And of course, infighting was exactly what we were examining with the 6 humans living in the house, a microcosm for humanity. So what was the deal with the TV show Friends?
Why do you care so much about that show anyway?
If there's any hope left in this fucked up world, we'll at least find out how things turn out for them.
Is there any hope left in this fucked up world? Well, according to the movie, the answer is yes. Because Rosie does find out what happened to Ross and Rachel, because she still has that innocence. She still cares about people, even if they're fictional characters. So the movie ends with that little glimmer of hope. They find the fallout shelter. Rosie finds the last episode of Friends. Not everyone is going to survive in this new world. Rosie hasn't succumbed to that dog-eat-dog mentality. The TV show Friends is often viewed as a form of pure escapism. It provides viewers with a sense of comfort through its portrayal of the humorous, relatable, and often idealised lives of its characters. Rosie's attachment to Friends symbolises a longing for the simplicity and predictability found in the show, which starkly contrasts with the complex, uncertain, and potentially threatening situation that the characters face in the movie. If we don't overcome our differences and unite to face the challenges of the future, whether they be cyber attacks, wars, or climate change, then we're going to be in deep trouble. Barack and Michelle Obama asked for changes to the script to make it a little more hopeful, and in the end the characters do begin to put aside their differences and work together. Later, Amanda explains,
I care. I do.
with her experience in advertising, she understands people.
I fucking hate people. We fuck each other over all the time without even realizing it.
We fuck every living thing on this planet over, and we think it will be fine because we use paper straws and order the free-range chicken. The sick thing is, I think deep down we know that we're not fooling anyone. I think we know we're living a lie, an agreed upon mass delusion to help us ignore and keep ignoring how awful we really are. Despite her reluctance to accept the Sanfords, Ruth finally tells Amanda,
nothing's gonna change the fact that we are all we've got.
and that's really what I think the whole film is exploring. Perhaps it's down to the Obama's intervention that has suggested that we might be worth saving. The characters begin to work together despite their differences. Amanda returns back to save Ruth from the deer. And here's Amanda with GH.
Because people are terrible. I mean, fuck. Look at the way I treated you. I am sorry, by the way, for what I said, did, thought. Doesn't matter. I was wrong and I'm sorry.
And GH says, and make no mistake, he's talking to us here, to humanity.
The scary ones, though, are the ones who don't learn. Nothing frightens me more than a person unwilling to learn, even at their own expense. Has a darkness I will never understand.
If we're not willing to learn to put aside our differences and our prejudices, then we're in deep trouble as a species. And here we are in 2023. Pause for a moment and consider the idea that you don't know when you're seeing the beginning of something. It's only with hindsight that we can clearly define the borders of history, that World War I started with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. At the time, they didn't know they'd crossed a precipice that would lead to not one but 2 global wars. When real disasters or apocalyptic scenarios come along, there are no convenient plot devices making sure you understand that you're in the middle of something big. We slide into these things naively. And perhaps we've already crossed the point of no return. We've got a war raging in Ukraine, the conflict in Israel and Gaza, Palestine, the threat of climate change, the potential threat of artificial intelligence and an over-reliance on technology. The conspiracy theorists will tell you that certain parties are pulling the strings, engineering wars for financial gain. But I agree with GH that this is a lazy analysis. The more scary notion is that nobody is in control and we're careering towards catastrophe. And this shot that we're looking at now, that's the American flag on the moon that was put there by the Apollo astronauts. And we're looking at a sunset. And it's the sun setting on mankind. It's the end of civilization. Which brings us back to Rosie. She says, I keep thinking about this one West Wing episode. And then she recounts the parable of the drowning man.
I think I'm done waiting.
Rosie is the first one in the group to take concrete steps to deal with their predicament. She steps out into the unknown to face up to the reality and to try to find a way to survive. Rosie is the heart of this story. Remember that quiet determination facing down those deer. She was scared, really scared, but she didn't back away or run away. The deer were representing nature and the catastrophe, and Rosie doesn't hide away pretending everything is okay. And she's driven by a love of Friends. Okay, it's Friends, the TV show, but what does that represent? I'll be there for you. Friendship, solidarity, looking out for each other. If Amanda's vision of the world is right, do we even deserve to survive? There's no point in surviving the apocalypse without Friends. Not the TV show, but everything that it represents. That's why Rosie sat down to watch the final episode, because love and friendship is what makes life worth living. And that's why we see Rosie walking through a womb. Rosie is going to birth a new world. The flood, like Noah's story, has came and washed away all the sins of mankind, and Rosie's going to birth a new world. And there's some hope that that's going to be a better world. A world free of all the infighting, the prejudice, the wars, everything that's wrong about our world today. And I believe that Clay and Amanda and Archie and Ruth and GH also made it to the house. They're going to help start the new world, but they're of the old world. Whether they've learned enough and changed enough, well, that's up in the air. And I think that's left for you to decide. Are you going to listen to the warning signs and join Rosie to build a better world, or are you going to ignore them? I'm going to stop there because I could talk for another hour about this film. There's lots of interesting themes and lots of ideas that could be discussed. If you like this explanation, then please like and subscribe, and maybe I'll make some more. Thanks for watching.